streamed before. Never messed much with social media. Don't really care for social media. But today, I thought I'd give this feature a try and kind of speak my mind and see what people think. Um, so if you're out there and you're watching this, don't be afraid to engage. That way I know I'm not just, screaming at the sky kind of thing. So what I was going to talk about is what it's like to be alive in 2026. What the world is like, what people are like, what the culture is like, what people think of the way things are, and how they respond to the way things are. In 2020, I kind of realized things were not going well. Not for me, but just generally. I noticed people were, I've noticed for years actually, that people were sort of like interchangeable. They seem to lack agency, personality of their own. All of a sudden, this show is popular, so everyone watches this show. All of a sudden, this dance is popular, so everyone does this dance. All of a sudden, tattoos are popular, and everyone's got tattoos. And I thought it was kind of weird. I thought it was weird that rap music was popular, and I'd listen to it to hear why it was popular, and it just wasn't good. A lot of things that we were being told were good weren't actually good. But people would go through their lives and they would do the things everyone else was doing. And it wasn't so bad because it paid. I mean, you would live, you'd be somewhat comfortable. Yeah, you hated your job, you hated the grind. Maybe you didn't like your boss, but you just kind of live for the weekend, and then you would go out and have some drinks with some friends on the weekends, and try to meet new people, try to meet a girl or a guy if that was your thing, and then you would go back to the office or go back to your job and do that for another 5 days, and you just kind of do that, and it would afford you an apartment and a car, and that was kind of good enough for you in your 20s, in your 30s, maybe. But then I started to kind of realize that that was going to be it. And I don't think it was always like this. I think for our parents and our grandparents, I think there was more to it, that you could have more. And by 2020, when uh, they told us that there was this deadly pandemic, that there were millions of people dying, I think a lot of people looked around and realized that there was a discrepancy between what we were being told and what reality was. And the solution to this once in a century pandemic was for us all to walk around with masks on and be afraid, and not go to work unless you were quote unquote essential, that kind of thing. Well, I kind of saw through it, and I saw that there wasn't going to be a future for people if you continued to do the things that we were being told to do by the people in charge. Used to be in my parents' day and my grandparents' day that if you just did what you were told, you would get something out of it. You would get, a house, a white picket fence, a wife, you know, go to work, get married, and you could support your family on one income. You do that. But today, if you were to do what you were being told, you would wind up $150,000 in debt from student loans, and you can't default on those. And boy, I mean, there's people screaming in the streets about nonsense. It's just whatever the corporate media tells them to be upset about, and they go and they complain. And no one takes agency in their own lives in regards to these issues. They don't try to make their own lives better. And that I realized, again, trying to go back to 2020, that there was a barrier of entry to kind of like a life hack where you could get around all of these challenges, this fixed system. You just basically had to do the opposite of what you were being told to do. And in 2020, I decided to buy some acreage and build a cabin 40 minutes outside of the town that I grew up in. And here in February 2026, the people, a lot of the people down in the valley where I grew up in that town, they're still screaming. They're still blaming this person and blaming that person, and they've got all these grievances, and they're upset, and they don't really do anything in their lives. They just stagnate. They stagnate. Meanwhile, I did this thing that was difficult to do, and now I'm just up in the mountains. It's quiet. It's clean air. There's animals everywhere. It's just lovely. It's better. It's comfortable. It's pleasant. I think everyone's anxious. I think everyone realizes that things aren't right and that we're being lied to constantly. And I think a lot of the things that would normally cause a person to have meaning in their life, I think that was actively disincentivized. And meters were put on the things that you needed. So you had to pay, like a Netflix subscription model. You had to pay to just to live. And people aren't having families anymore. So I think there's a lot of anxious people that are drowning in this thing, and they lash out by just blaming and blaming and blaming and demanding free stuff, demanding handouts, demanding solutions from their leaders. And for me, it was easy. Just do it yourself. If things weren't working, if you weren't happy with the way things were or are, just leave. Take all the responsibilities that people want to demand from their politicians and from society at large, and provide those things yourself. Get your own well water, a private well. Build your own house. Produce your own fuel, your own electricity. Get so you don't have neighbors. Get so there's not law enforcement around you. Get so you don't hear sirens every day, and traffic and crime and other people in lines. Man, there's something about lines, waiting in a line, waiting in traffic. I think it fries people's minds. I think it's antithetical to the way that we're supposed to live. The freedom that you're supposed to have. Where I live, there are no lines. There's no other people. There's no police. There's no ambulances. And some people might be afraid of that. They might think, what am I? They might. You want your coffee. You want your Starbucks. You want your McDonald's. You want your movies. You want your yoga class. You naturally kind of want to know that if you break your arm or you have a stroke or something, that paramedics are going to come and get you. So a lot of people just don't want to live this way. But I found the secret to enjoying your life and feeling better about life is to live the way the people that came before us lived. We got all this technology, all this being plugged in. I'm on it right now. I'm talking to whoever out there, if there's anyone even listening. I don't even know. Can I tell if someone's listening? Yeah, no. Apparently, no one's watching. So I'm screaming into the void. But I found that all of these things that are supposed to make our lives better, the Netflix, the smartphones, the biometric login data for to get into your bank account, um, even things as simple as your car. Technology has pushed us to such a point that we're lacking in meaning making in our lives. We're not finding real purpose. We're not passionate about things anymore. We're just sort of going through the motions. And I think the solution to that is to go backwards. Have a bed made out of logs. Live in a house made out of wood. Um, Heat your house with wood. Go out there, get blisters on your hands, use an axe. Um, Try to get off the US dollar. It's collapsing. It's fiat. It has been our whole lives. It's a Ponzi scheme. Basically, the way it works is after the Second World War, Europe was in ruins. The world was in ruins. And the United States kind of came in at the end of the war. And we had this deal with all these countries. We would bail them out and end the war. And in exchange, we got to put the United States, that is, got to put their military all over these other countries. And we forced them to use US dollars. You have to use US dollars. How did we force them to do that? The oil production. We've worked out a deal with Saudi Arabia and other large oil producers, and we provide military support and defense for them in exchange for them selling their oil in exclusively US dollars. So every country in the world had to use the US dollar. And the dollars, since around 1970, haven't been backed by anything tangible. They're just printed. And for every dollar that is loaned to somebody, 90 cents more is printed. Not actually printed, but created. So the whole world's been using this currency that's not real. And countries all over the world know it's a Ponzi scheme and they want off it. And they're trying to get away from the United States. And because of that, everything's kind of collapsing. Wars going everywhere. Hyperinflation's happening. And here I am up in the mountains doing okay, while everyone else is screaming about race and pronouns and gender and Epstein files and just everything except what's going on. And I think whether people want to or not, they're going to have to live the way our ancestors used to live. I think they're going to be forced to grow their own food. They're going to be forced to work themselves, or they're going to die. Because this system of usury and fiat is collapsing. And to the socialist minded people out there that want free housing and free ice cream and free Medicaid and free Medicare and free everything, nothing was ever free. Somebody had to put in the time and the labor to create those things. And that only works when you've outsourced all your production to the rest of the world that you've enslaved. We've got slave countries all over the place to do stuff for us, and nobody here does anything domestically anymore. So my question to you is, where the fuck are you going to get your free shit? Who is going to work all day to make something free for you when everyone's just trying to survive for themselves? Things are changing. It's going to be wild. It's going to be a wild time. It's going to be a new world. Either it's going to be totalitarian or it's going to be rugged. I put my money on rugged. So I'm a modern pioneer today. And what that does is sort of safeguard me against any sort of collapse or totalitarianism. Because it's really hard to control people that live out in the middle of nowhere and provide things for themselves. It's really easy to control people that live in a city and then are dependent on municipal services. So I'm kind of protected in either scenario. One of the two is going to happen, and I don't think that the people in charge have the ability to maintain control for much longer. It's like the mouse utopia experiments John Calhoun performed, where you put all these mice in this perfect utopic society, mouse society, where they had games to play with, a little mouse wheel and unlimited food and water and a lot of space. But over a few generations, the mice rejected it, and I know it sounds weird, but the mice like turned gay and violent and stopped procreating. And the ones that did procreate, the mothers would just like kill the baby mice, and the population would go to zero. It would just completely collapse. And the guy Calhoun, he recreated these experiments over and over again for decades, and every time the same thing happened. I think it's like that line in the Matrix, when Neo's fighting Agent Smith, and Agent Smith explains a little bit about the Matrix and says that at first they had created it so it'd be idyllic and perfect for the humans, but the humans got angry and rejected it. I think living in a society where we're surveilled all the time and our favorite pastime is doom scrolling and couch rotting and arguing about whatever race related or gender related cause that the glowing screen tells us we're supposed to rage about today. I think living like that is very unfulfilling. And I think people are going to just spurg out, and it's not going to work. I think we're probably going back, or we're going extinct. But I think we're going back. I think we're going back to men with blisters on their hands and women that don't have that weird thing through their nose and covered in tattoos and screaming about empowerment and shit like that. They're just like, I don't know, being mothers or something, right? It's like homemaking the way it used to be. It's hard to stay optimistic when you look around because you're surrounded by just negativity all the time. But for me, if you just go to the mountains and tune all that out, it's so much better. You'll still get the negativity. It's still there in your proliferacy. It's still there, like, you know, on the outskirts of what you're doing. And you observe it and kind of see it. And yeah. I think the best thing you could do is sort of understand that everything you're being told is narrative. It's propaganda. It's designed to cause you to behave in a certain way. And if you know that, then it's real easy to just say, fuck it, I don't care. Whatever. Build your own communities. People are important. Protection is important. Being able to provide for yourself food, shelter, water, energy, that's important. Key is do it for yourself. Don't be on municipal services because I don't think the system's stable. I don't think it's going to maintain. Um, do it for your running outside of the paradigm of everyone else. Everyone else is sort of stuck in this shuffle and you're outside of it. And it feels good. It can kind of feel scary at times too because not a lot of people are doing that, so you feel alone. You're like, I'm not, and not doing what you were trained to do and what everyone else is doing. You feel like you're kind of doing something wrong, and you feel like you're putting a lot, investing a lot into something that's bound to fail. But from my experience, once you get yourself out of these cities and out of that headspace, you find that you're surrounded by other people that think the same. They they're like you, and because they're different, and because they care about community, you'll actually make real friends, real neighbors, people that work together. They're more like family than neighbors. You know their first name, you know their last name, you know their kids, you know their wives, you know their parents, you know everyone that they know, and you all come together and work together. Like this cabin up in the mountains that I live in now. It's the guest house. We're building a bigger house. It's already built. It just needs all the guts, you know, the wiring, the water, the finish work, that kind of stuff. But even this guest house, I couldn't have built this if it weren't for people in this community that helped me. They knew things I didn't know. They had skills that I didn't have. And how did I get them to help me? By simply being a member of a community, by helping them. Uh, they help me, I help them. You know, be friendly, be nice, be cool. And people tend to want to help you. But this dynamic doesn't really apply to living in a city, because the people that are plugged in and living in the cities, they're largely solipsistic. They're plugged into their own narcissistic, hedonistic pleasures, and it's like every man, woman, and child for themselves. And you could live in an apartment complex in a city and not know the people living above you, below you, to either side of you. You don't know any of these people. And you sure as hell ain't helping each other for the most part. And the relationships a lot of people have are just sort of uh, surface level. They're like, they're not they're not deep. They're not meaningful, I've noticed. Well, anyways, I think I've ranted enough here. I'll try this again one of these days. Thanks for anyone that's out there that did in fact watch this. Tune in and you'll hear more monologues in the future. God bless everyone, and have a good evening.